You know, Jesus, when he began his ministry, he sometimes preached in houses, it's recorded. Sometimes he preached in a synagogue. A few times he preached in the open air temple courts. But most of the time, Jesus would preach outdoors. He would gather his people, sometimes into thousands, and he would preach to them using the lay of the land to be able to preach to all these people. We see his Sermon on the Mount. That's an example, really, of what he would do when he would go out into the areas and he would gather the people together. In the Sermon on the Mount, everyone thinks Jesus was on top of the mountain. Most likely he was at the bottom of the mountain and the people were on the hill, and that way it was like a natural amphitheater, so everyone could see and everyone could hear him. And we see his message here in the Sermon on the Mount. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. And indeed, this echoes through all the generations about how we as people of Christ are supposed to be the light of the earth, the light of the world to other people. And it's simply reflecting the light of Christ in our lives so that other people might see that. And that has brought about so many wonderful things, so many missions over the years, and so many ministries, and so many lives and souls saved over the many generations. You know, it's interesting that Jesus spent a lot of time outdoors. In fact, he'd go up on the mountains or into the wilderness to pray. And when he did open air preaching, I think that was electric, exciting for everyone to be with Jesus as he met in a beautiful cathedral in the great outdoors. The early church also met outside. We know that the early church had no place to meet, and they were small, and so in Acts we learned that they met in their homes, and they also taught in the temple courts. Later on, we know that even during persecution, they would meet in grottos or outside in the woods somewhere so that they couldn't be found. And indeed, they've always met outside. One of my heroes of the Christian faith, John Wesley. John Wesley was an Anglican priest, and he was taught, you know, you stay very refined, you go out and you stay in a church to preach. Well, when his heart was strangely warmed, his life changed forever. And then he wanted something more for people to know Christ. And so he talked to different preachers to preach, but they said, no, you're too enthusiastic. We don't want you preaching in our churches anymore. Even though he was an Anglican priest, he was not allowed to preach in their churches. And one day, George Whitefield, a Baptist preacher and a good friend of John Wesley, said, John, why don't you preach outdoors? And John said, no, that's weird. I want to preach in a church. And John was challenged to go out and preach outdoors. And amazingly, people arrived and kept coming, and John preached, and there were people with tears in their eyes. They were so excited. Some of these people had never been in a church before. And they were giving their lives to Christ, and that's how it all began to grow. That's how Methodism grew and was birthed in outdoor preaching. And we know that throughout the time, outdoor preaching has been exciting and people have loved it. Well, years ago when the church was very young, in fact, we were in the storefront building. We came out on our land after we purchased the land. We had some people clear away some woods and debris, and we had a person with a chainsaw made us an altar and a pulpit out of some logs taken from this land. And I preached my first outdoor sermon here on the land of Christ Community. That was back in 1990. And now, Sunday, we had to meet out here because we weren't allowed to go into the building. And people, I wondered how many people might come to one of my goofy ideas of having a drive-in church. Though my heart was warmed when I saw so many people gather for a worship. Yeah, they stayed in their car, they were safe. But people were excited. They knew they should be here, and we had a great time together. And I preached on a scissor lift. This week, in fact, we're going to try it again. In fact, it's going to be a little better. We've learned. I told you it'd be kind of rough starting out because everything we do, we learn from it. And so we're going to have better technology, better signal on the FM. We're going to have better wireless. If you're going to watch it online at home, our repeater actually went out because of an outlet. Well, we fixed that issue, and now I hope anyway this Sunday is even much better, and I'd love to see you. 8:15 and 10:45 this Sunday right here in the parking lot. I'll be up on the scissor lift, and we will have worship together. And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone with us in an outdoor worship service. God bless.